Hello everyone and welcome to Gierok Farms. We wanted to make a quick short video for you about some farm improvements, and this looks too nice to not share with you guys. So recently Dad and Mason have worked on replacing the doors here going into the milk house, and man does it look sharp.
And that's the thing, it won't look that sharp forever because of the environment. And I was thinking about this because these old doors really got beat up. They were put in '05, but I gotta say, on this farm and this whole operation, including our house, I think these doors get used the most.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, because of the twice a day, every day, all your units get dragged through and everything. Anytime, you know, it's kind of the center of our business. This room cannot freeze because this is where our water comes in for all our livestock, and you know, our pressure tanks is in here, and all our sensitive stuff, including our milking equipment and everything that goes along with that's all in here. Yeah, so the old the old ones, you know, got to the point where the door slams, and then almost to the point where the windows were falling right out of it already, and that's just how it is. So we go to our local Menards here, and by God, they're still able to sell me almost the identical thing because they got this rough opening. And this milk house, I want to think it was built in the 50s. My dad told me that this was one of there was two farms in this valley that had bulk milk for they were the first ones, and this was one of them, where they actually built a milk house onto the barn. You know, original places, usually the milk house was somewhere else, you know, off to the side. So it's not exactly square, and you know, everything's so, but you know, it's cinder blocks. And so anyway, so it's always challenging because everything's got to be square in order for the door to shut right and latch right. And the reason for the double doors, you know, in case somebody doesn't quite figure that out, it's all about in case you need to replace your milk tank. Maybe you might have to take doors off the hinges, but the tank will fit through this hole. We put our first larger tank in. I think our first one was a flat top. They could flip it on its side and take the legs off. They got it through the door. But then we bought a 600 gallon, and of course, you know, then we had to smash out part of the wall, and then, okay, you gotta put this wall back in. I suppose a guy could have just put in like a filler, like a fake wall that just gets screwed in, and then you take that out and still only have your single door. But the best thing is here is I got windows with it, screens with it, so we're able to vent, and then of course you can shut things up good in the winter when they're supposed to be shut. Replaced a little bit of our glass board, which was, it always is kind of interesting, this stuff, because it's real flimsy, but to get everything to fit right, you know, on a square room. And then I got real heavy spring. Again, this door gets open and shut, and it, you know, legally it's supposed to be shut unless we're doing some sort of major repairs, you know, then you have to have your door to get stuff through. But that's kind of the thing with this. So our state inspector, which right now comes around once a year, these are things he looks at. You got a self-shutting door that closes tight, and they like to see improvements. Even though there's probably not a dairy in this whole world that's by the book 100%. Surprised if there was, but they like to see that you're trying and you're consistently,
And that you care, yeah, you care about.
you're adding something. They see something new, something painted new, something replaced. I think the worst ones are the ones that are just like, yeah, eventually everything just slowly starts deteriorating to the point where you could end up with some sanitation issues because of it. And that's their job to make sure that doesn't happen. And it gets out in the media, and then pretty soon our dairy industry is...
Yeah, we want to keep everything food safe.
Yeah, so that's huge. So even though if you'd had a parlor or whatever you have, where the milk is stored is pretty firm there. And like every project, you say, oh, that's going to go pretty quick, and what you thought was going to take one afternoon, pretty soon you got 3 days in. Because we had to tear away a lot of the interior stuff that was lapped onto the door jamb. Actually, originally I thought I could just take the hinges out of the new frame and put in the new doors, but everything being that it's 20 years, the old one was 20 years old, it's not going to match up 100%.
Yep.
I would have been going down this road anyway. And then there was a little bit of rotting on one of the frame areas because all the moisture that's used in here. And
yeah, the door jamb and all the trim looks really, really nice. And actually Mason, he did some...
Yeah, so the door stops here. And then we had a filler here because of our walls and being thicker and stuff. And he knew a guy that he works with that's got this. So this is just aluminum. You buy this in Menards. I think it was only like 10 inches wide or something. But he had, what do they call it? A break. Where they can
a bender. Yeah.
Yeah, they can shape it to. So this is some odd dimension here. So he just took a quick measurement and he was able to make that, and then he kind of helped me put that in. I guess it's not 100% by the book, but again, you know, the room isn't, but for what it's getting used for, and like I said, look at it now because it looks good. And it's going to get its dings and dents and scuffs.
Yeah, it won't look this good shortly, but
because it's used, and even just carrying milk or stew, and they're clinking against it and things, and that's just how it is. And now the barn plan is here. We got to get our third crop hay made, but typically we pressure wash the barn. I usually go through the whole thing. I know a lot of guys ask about you know, how many times we whitewash and all these things. We kind of got away from whitewashing. We're more into painting. We'll pressure wash all the poles along the stalls in the center of the barn, all off. My doors and our walls. I'll take the leaf blower ahead of time and blow all the cobwebs down. And then any new wood we put on, we will buy this high end. It's actually dairy enamel, they call it. It's a really expensive. It comes in gallons, and we do spruce up with that. And sometimes not quite every year, but maybe every other. And then paint will last longer. Whitewash will wash off.
Yeah, and you can probably show them in here. You probably have a little bit of whitewash left.
Well, okay, so
you can kind of see it, yeah.
Well, yeah, you can see on some of. Well, here's an older beam, and the stuff is flaking off. I never liked that stuff, and they claim when stray voltage got to be a bigger issue, you know, with dairy, and they started proving the fact that actually on muggy, you know, damp times, it does enhance stray voltage because it's so thick, and it's almost like a lime coating, and it harbors water.
Yeah, and it's not flat either. There's a lot more surface area too, which is what I never could understand. Is when it flakes right away, it's, you know, you got way more area for.
This barn has probably been whitewashed 50 times. And most of it before I came here, because I mean, back in the day, it was kind of a bigger requirement, and there was all these little outfits, and they had an old pickup with that tank on the back, and it usually was some retired farmers or something that would do this for a living, and it was just during the summer months, and the state required you. It was more about cleaning the barn and then it looking white. They didn't say it has to be whitewashed. That's where once we started putting in new this and that, you know, like that wall, I washed all that whitewash off, and we painted it. You know, even though it's getting a little bit not so on the bottom, once I washed that again, we could just go over it quick, skim over it. The rock wall is always a bigger challenge because the moisture, sandstone. It has been replastered. I did quite a bit of that stuff here quite a few years ago. I think 2 years ago we painted this.
Yeah, we redid that.
And really, I can get a lot of that off with the pressure washer again. Like I said, once a year. Now we're getting late in the summer. Flies are bad. So the milk line, everything will get just polished. And it's almost kind of interesting because once we get this all done, we try to do it on a nice, airy, dry day so the wind dries the barn off. When the cows come home, they hesitate to go in because it just looks too clean.
Yep.
It's like the walk almost glistens, and you may have to put some straw down or something to disguise it so they're more comfortable.
Light bouncing off the wall. But anyways, when it comes to like how smooth and sealed it is, your bricks on this side are a good example of that. Compared if Dad was to whitewash, this wouldn't be sealed. You know, you can kind of see that paint, how
it's going to be smoother. And then what happens is in the winter when it's really cold and get that condensation going on, or even in the summer some, if you brush against that like this, you get, you know, it's dirty, really. Yeah. Even though it looks white. So I know back in the day that was, you got whitewashed the barn, but that stuff, you know, was cracked up to be. It basically was I think when the dairy industry started evolving, I think it was a real economical way to get a look. And it was always kind of an exciting time where you get all the livestock out of the barn, and you get, you know, and the whole family helped, and then they wouldn't cover the pipeline, and you'd have to scrub around. And of course, they didn't have all this electronic stuff back then, so we'd have to scrub a lot of that by hand. Where here we pressure wash now, and when I paint, we don't exactly. We're pretty careful so you can keep that pretty clean. But yeah, that'll just. So anyway,
I talked to an older guy where that was his full-time job, and I don't think there's anybody around that's their full-time job.
There's so few stall barns left for one thing, and there probably a lot of them are. I mean, if they look pretty good yet, you don't have to do it every year. They'd buy somebody else's old rig, and it would just be maybe a sideshow for somebody, and And sometimes I think it's almost more they enjoy going out and visiting with the farmers and being part of that. That's usually a kind of a big event in the dairy in the year. Clean up the barn, get a fresh reset everything before winter again. And you always done it in the summer months because everybody grazed their cows back in the day, so the barns were. I know one guy, because in the early years we did it a few times. That one guy said he only had one barn where the farmer would not put the cows out. I don't know, that just don't seem right. But he said we had to work between the cows and we got it done, but it's never the same. But no, I don't think that's the case anymore. With the parlors, of course, where you actually milk the cows, that's got to be all white, and they probably use the glass board and stuff like we got in our milk room now. And then where the cows live in a free stall, it's not required to have it quite that, because you're not actually milking them in that area.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a little look at some of the farm improvements here, especially them doors. That's a really nice upgrade compared to what we did have. But anyways, leave some comments down below what you think and things that you guys have done to stall barns. Those of you that are retired farmers, we'd be interested to hear about that. We always like learning from you guys, so we appreciate that. Also, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. We're almost to 100,000 subscribers, so help get us there. And check out our website, GierokFarms.com. Get yourself one of these new hats. We also got some stocking hats on there.
Mine get pretty old.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get you some more.
I'll find somebody that might have a new one.
Yeah, we might have to. But anyways, that's gonna be it. We will see you all next time.